Hey guys, Nate Perkins here, and welcome to my In the Bag video. This is my 7th season representing Discmania. I'm gonna walk you guys through my putters. I'm putting with the EXO Hard Link. For the past few years, I've been back and forth between the P2 and the Link, and I really went to the drawing board middle of this season, and I really find that the bead on the Link, it's exactly where I want to put my pointer finger, and so that's ultimately why I switched from the P2 back to the Link. The plastic itself is the exact stiffness that I'm looking for, and after they bead in, they get this kind of wear on it that is perfect for when it's like a little hot outside, or even when there's rain. Often out here on the tour, we're playing in adverse conditions. Like, I still find grip with the bead-in EXO Hard Link. So, all right, and I finally got my hands on a Neo Tactic. Shout out to Eagle McMahon. This is probably one of my favorite discs in my bag right now. It's exactly the overstable mid-range that we've been trying to make for years. Just that zone type disc, just bored flat on top, the exact stability that I'm looking for, and I cannot wait for these to be produced. This is actually the Italian blend. So they're calling it Neo, but really it's that C line from the new factory in Sweden. And then I also love just the EXO Soft Tactic. It's a little bit straighter, so you know, if I don't need it to finish to the right as hard on my forehand approaches, that I'll go with the Soft Tactic and just kind of flip it up and fly it straight. I'm also bagging a Sensei in the active plastic. I love the Sensei because I love the beadless putter for my throwing putter, and the Sensei, just a gentle hyzer flip, flips flat, flies dead straight. Definitely give those a try if you haven't. One of the cheapest discs that you can get from Discmania, and yeah, it's one of the straightest flyers that I have. All right, so this is the mid-range lineup. Let's go from most understable to stable. So the most understable, and one of my favorite molds that Discmania has ever made, is the Origin. I love the Neoplastic Origin. This is probably the glidiest mid-range that I've ever thrown. I like to throw it for my straight hyzer flip, drift right shots, or just that towering Annie shot. The Annie hasn't really been my forte throughout my career, but with the Origin, I'm able to throw high Annies that continue drifting to the right, even though I'm not quite getting the disc up to speed like some of the other guys out there. The next straightest mid-range in my bag is the MD3, also the Italian blend plastic. This one's been beat up pretty well, but I just can't say enough about the quality of the plastic that Discmania is now producing on their own. This MD3 is probably my most thrown mid-range, just because of how comfortable it feels in my hand, how many shots I've thrown with it, and just my level of confidence that I have in it. And then I recently put an Iron Samurai 3 in the bag. Obviously, you know, I'm on Eagle's team, but I'm still a fan of Eagle McMahon, so I've got to have one of his discs, at least one of his discs in my bag at all times. And you know, this one flips flat, flies straight, has a little bit of fade for me, so a little bit more overstable than the bead-in MD3, and just the brand new Color Glow plastic that Discmania is producing in Sweden. I'm super stoked for it. This is the first Color Glow plastic that I felt from the new factory. And guys, only time will tell if this is the same blend that we're gonna use on the Night Strike 4. All right, and the last mid-range in my lineup is an MD4. MD4 has been one of the staples in my bag for a really long time. Bored flat. We're out here in Emporia, Kansas this week, and this is definitely going to be a disc that I use quite a bit. The integrity of this disc is why I like it so much. It's not necessarily super overstable, but the thing about the MD4 is you can trust that it's never going to roll over. Whereas, you know, the Origin is made to kind of flip and roll, and the MD3 will drift a little bit when you start to beat them in. But no matter what, that you know that the MD4 is never just gonna roll over on you. All right, now we're on to my fairways, and the fairway lineup is probably my favorite part about my bag. It's the discs that I use most often. The 7-speed is my favorite speed, particularly the FD. That was the first disc that I really fell in love with from Discmania. And obviously I'm pretty partial to the FD because it was my very first signature disc, which kind of launched my career, the Night Strike 1 back in 2018. So, walking you through it, let's do most understable to stable again. So the most understable fairway that I'm throwing right now is this really beat in Night Strike 2. I just recently retired one of my Night Strike 1s. It got a little too flippy, but also just for the sentimental value of it, I didn't want to lose it, as some of you might be able to relate to. So yeah, this Night Strike 2 is my flippiest one. I will sometimes throw this on a little flip up forehand, or if I really need to get out of jail, this is kind of what I use for the towering Annie shot. But mainly I use this for hyzer flip stand-ups that really drift and don't ever finish. And then the next up in stability is probably the Zen. And the Zen is somewhat similar to the FD slot, but it's a little bit faster. The FD is a 7-speed, the Zen is an 8-speed. So at first I kind of thought that the Zen would just replace some of my Night Strikes, but it turns out that it fills a different slot entirely. It's much longer of a disc. It's only 1 speed faster, but it just glides forever. So I'm using this all the way up to like 400 feet. This Zen in particular will flip up, fly straight. It'll drift, but it has a little bit more fade at the end than that beat in Night Strike 2. And then I've got a pretty fresh Night Strike 2. This one's one of the flatter runs. And this one is kind of straight with guaranteed hyzer at the end. It doesn't really drift too much for me. And then I've got a brand new C-Line FD. This is from the new factory in Sweden. And honestly, guys, don't go out there and pay $200 for a Night Strike. Go and get a $16 C-Line FD. They fly like a dream. Shout out to Pastry Dies for the sick die. All right, and then probably the most used discs in my bag are my FD3s. I've got a Color Glow FD3 that's been beat in for a couple seasons now. Really my favorite disc to throw on a forehand line. I'm using it, you know, anywhere from 225 to 375. And it'll flip up, fly straight, drift just a little bit, but it's always going to fade. And then if I need a little bit more fade, I'm going with a just original Glow FD3. Can't wait to try these out when Discmania produces them at their new factory. the drivers, again, we're gonna go from most understable to stable. The Enigma has kind of proven itself. It's become my most used driver, really. This Vapor Enigma is my most understable driver, I would say. It's been beat in for a bit, but just great glide. And for someone that doesn't throw 75 miles per hour, I mean, I'm more of like a 62, 65 mile per hour guy. And so I'm not really able to break those DD3s over. So if you're in the same boat as me and you're not quite up to that Eagle McMahon Simon Lizotte speed, try the Enigma. It will likely fly further for you than your DD3. So the next up is another Vapor Enigma. This one is a little domier and has a little bit more integrity than that beat-in one. And then the Neo Enigma is on the more stable spectrum. That's probably my number 3 or number 4 slot right now. And this is probably my furthest flying forehand disc right now. And then this is my most understable Cloudbreaker. This has been in my bag since they were released. This is a prototype. And you know, it honestly, it might be too flippy, but I love this specific disc. And so I will use this for like my quick flip forehand shots in the woods. I was throwing this a lot at the major at WR Jackson on some of those holes, just steep hyzer, flip up quick and get it to roll just a little bit, but hyzer out at the end. And then the next step up is a Cloudbreaker 2. This one's been beat in for a full season now. Flies like a dream. This is probably the disc, wide open, 400 feet, forehand. This is probably the one that I'm reaching for most often. All right, and we are getting into the more stable spectrum here. So I've got a fresh X-Out Cloudbreaker 2. Shout out to the factory for getting me this disc ASAP for last weekend's tournament. And then I gotta thank Eagle McMahon for this sweet Huck Lab dyed Cloudbreaker 3. The white Cloudbreaker 3 tends to be the most overstable one. So this is close to my most overstable disc. Definitely my most overstable DD3. And I'm gonna be competing out here at the Dynamic Discs Open. And this is likely gonna be one of my main workhorses because while it's stable, it still has that good glide of a DD3. So I'll be using this for headwind shots up to 450. And then I've got a couple of PD2s. The PD2 along with the FD was one of the original discs that really attracted me to the Discmania lineup. I've got a couple of C-lines and they are just absolute bricks. The most trustworthy disc in my bag as far as stability. And most of the time I'm throwing it on a forehand, you know, but if the shot calls for it, I will rip these on a high hyzer. But yeah, these are just consistent, and it seems like every week we're playing like in just ripping winds. I mean, last week in Jonesboro and Texas State's Waco, like we're just like 25, 30 mile per hour winds. And it's hard to get a disc it's hard to trust a disc when it's that windy, but the PD2 has always been a staple. Yeah, shout out to Discmania. I really can't believe it's been 7 years with the company. I can't thank them enough for their trust in me. And I can't thank you guys enough for the support over all these years. Let me know in the comments what you're throwing that's also in my bag, and I'll see you guys out on the road.